2.0 burned vividly into the national memory. Now, with Trump 2.0 barely underway, protests have erupted again as if oppose Trump at all costs has become a permanent fixture in American politics. But what's more perplexing this time is not just the continuation of anti-Trump sentiment, but the explosive rise of a new target, Tesla and Elon Musk. The protests against them have been nothing short of dramatic, so intense they've left many stunned. At noon on May 3, 2025, in Manhattan's meatpacking district, hundreds gathered outside Tesla's showroom. It was the fifth protest since President Trump's second term began. Their banner read, "Tesla takedown taking on the MAGA billionaires." Time flies. 10 days have passed in the blink of an eye, and while the protests outside Tesla's Manhattan headquarters may have quieted, the scenes replay endlessly in my mind, unforgettable and unresolved. The furious tide of demonstrators seemed to burn with the hatred for Tesla and for Elon Musk that bordered on the absolute. Their claims, their mission, they wielded them like ironclad truths. Elon Musk, the world's richest man, the very one who stepped forward when America teetered on the brink of financial collapse. Through his Department of Government Efficiency DOGE, Musk slashed over $150 billion in federal spending in just 100 days, more than the GDP of most nations. By all logic, every American should be thanking him. But these protesters? They're not stopping. They're doubling down. They argue Musk's budget cuts are butchering democracy, stripping away public services that millions of Americans rely on. So, is this what they call justice? Or is it a betrayal of a man who stepped in to save the nation? Coming up next, raw, unfiltered footage from the protest. The voices fueling the outrage, and one question we must all confront. Their fury, their confidence, their so-called proof, their righteous slogans. Is this truly democracy and justice, or something else entirely?
The pressure builds. The story continues in seconds.
By people like Elon Musk, who
reasonable life with reasonable hours for reasonable pay.
Democrat in the Senate is going to vote.
It's a beautiful day to be protesting Elon Musk. I'm curious because I'm curious Elon, SpaceX received so many new government contracts. And why is that? Because Elon Musk, Donald Trump's right-hand man, is able to donate a massive sum of money to be able to influence our democracy, to be able to receive government contracts while ordinary people like you and me are facing Medicare cuts. While our government agencies that protect our food, our water, our air, and our health are completely getting gutted.
Where's Congress?
Get him out of there.
According to one study, an estimated 200,000 people have already died around the world because of cuts to USAID. To put that into perspective, that is the richest man in the world killing over 200,000 people from some of the poorest communities in the world. That's right, and it's just starting, guys. It's only been a little over 3 months since the inauguration, and we have already seen Tesla protesters be sort of like alleged, be called alleged domestic terrorists. That's not right, because in a real democracy, when people make their voices heard, when they make their opinions heard, when they push back against the leaders and individuals that they perceive to be causing harm to the communities, they should not be called domestic terrorists. When students protest and organize on their campuses because they are concerned that the U.S. government is funding and abetting a genocide, they should not be disappeared into ICE prisons.
Put Musk in prison.
When you are somebody who happens to be Venezuelan, when you are a U.S. citizen who happens to perhaps have parents that aren't citizens, you should not be disappeared to foreign prisons. You should not be deported. All of those things that I've just said are already happening to people. We are seeing U.S. citizens start to get deported, including one child who has cancer right now. We are seeing residents get deported to some of the worst, most torturous prisons you can imagine, completely unlawfully, completely without any due process, simply because of who they are, what they look like, and because they have had the misfortune of getting racially profiled by a racist deportation machine. 2 days ago was May Day, International Workers' Day. In this country, we are seeing over 1,000 protests starting on Thursday, yesterday, today, and tomorrow. That's amazing. That is following multiple weekends where over 5 million people have turned out onto the streets. That is following over 1 buy and create the batteries that the electric vehicles require. They have to mine lithium and other so-called rare earth minerals from countries like Peru, countries like Colombia, countries like the Congo. And let me tell you a little bit about what happens in these mines. In these mines, workers who are adults but also children suffer under extremely horrific conditions. In these mines, toxic waste is spewed into the local waters, into the local air. In these mines, production happens for the materials that go into the cars that are sold by the richest man in the world, and the people that suffer are people all over the world whose only sin was being born into a poor country that is now being exploited by people like Elon Musk, who exploit their labor, who make them suffer and work under horrible conditions, who destroy their local environment just to enrich themselves. Then let's talk about the work conditions here. They're not much better, let's be real. In Elon Musk's companies here, he faces many labor violations. Here, the factories also spew toxic waste into public waters, spew a bunch of toxic air pollution. In fact, according to one measure, Tesla is the 5th most polluting company in the country when you measure how much toxic air pollution they spew. Somebody just said in the crowd, the FDA regulates it, but that's not going to happen for much longer unless we're able to stop the government takeover that Musk is driving. So for all of those reasons and more, we are here today. We are going to be here in the future, and we are going to fight like hell until Musk falls. Until the board of directors of Tesla take accountability and remove him as the CEO of Tesla. And now it is my pleasure to invite Cody Eaton. Cody is a fantastic organizer from the Teamsters. He organizes Amazon warehouse workers in this area, and he is actually himself a former Amazon worker as well. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Cody to speak a few words about why we're here today.
Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, happy May Day, International Workers' Day. May Day is not commonly celebrated in the US because they try to distract us with Labor Day. They forgot that May Day was made in America in 1886 in Haymarket Square in Chicago. And so today, this weekend, we carry on the legacy of what workers have been fighting for in this country for well over a century, for decades. And that is a reasonable life with reasonable hours for reasonable pay. Workers are not asking for anything crazy, but billionaires like Elon Musk, like Donald Trump, like Jeff Bezos are stealing from us. Shout out to my people in the back. I used to work in an Amazon warehouse in the Bronx, DNJ3. I worked for $15.25 an hour.
That ain't right.
Amidst a pandemic. They gave us $3 of hazard pay an hour, and they stopped it 3 months into the pandemic. Did the pandemic stop after 3 months?
No!
It did not. But what didn't change is the fact that people are willing to stand up. My coworkers and I demanded safety changes, we demanded better pay, and we won through collective action. Now, I am a member of Teamsters Local 804, and we've been working with workers across New York City to make sure that they get what they deserve. In the fall, over 200 drivers at the DBK4 delivery station, including several of whom are with me here today. Shout out Maria, shout out Eddie. Took on Amazon and disrupted the flow of packages in a way they had never seen before. This is the largest strike against Amazon in this country to date. And we've seen workers stand up from California to Chicago, to Atlanta, to Kentucky, to New Jersey. Everywhere across this country, Amazon workers are standing up, speaking up, rising up. And we see that the same thing is happening with Tesla workers. Whether or not Elon Musk tries to scare them illegally by retaliating and firing against workers for organizing. Shame! 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 And as many of you have seen recently, right? These companies that are so-called job creators are actually just guzzling taxpayers' money to put them into their pockets to get stock buybacks, to give stock shareholders more and more money. What allows this to happen in part, right, is the fact that when these companies break labor laws and other laws, they get nothing more than a slap on the wrist. If that. There is currently a law in the New York State legislature that has not yet been passed, and we want it to pass. It's called the Empire Act. It would give workers a payout from companies that violate labor law by committing wage theft, by scheduling workers to show up for a shift and then sending them home without pay, which happens at Amazon, which happens at other companies. So one thing everyone here can do today is make sure you call your local state senator, your state assembly person, tell them to pass the Empire Act, tell them to sign on to the Empire Act, because workers are not going to get enough from a measly slap on the wrist. We need real enforcement, real teeth to make sure that workers get what they deserve. When Amazon workers are under attack, what do we do? When Amazon workers are under attack, what do we do? What do we do? Damn right we do. One last thing I want to remind everybody. Jeff Bezos, not a self-made man. Anyone can do what he's done with a small $1 million loan from their parents. Elon Musk is the son of an emerald mine owner. That's not pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. So all these billionaires that say, oh, just keep working hard, you'll get ahead. We know that's a lie. We know that's a distraction. We will not be distracted. We will not be misled. We will fight until we win. When Tesla workers are under attack, what do we do? When federal workers are under attack, what do we do? When Medicare is under attack, what do we do? When Palestine is under attack, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? Thank you, everyone, in solidarity.
Pleasure to introduce our next speaker. He is an organizer for one of the most brave and bold organizations that have been part of this Tesla takedown movement. As the first organization in New York City to protest at this location, Rise and Resist have really they have led the charge to ensure that Musk falls and that our democracy is preserved. So without further ado, J.W. Walker.
Thank you, Alice.
It looks like
democracy looks like. Show me what New Yorkers look like. Show me what Americans look like. All right, y'all, we are out here today like we're out here all the time. If you're part of our crew, we're going to be marching on a bunch of billionaires, a bunch of New York billionaires that are helping to push this fascist, authoritarian, white supremacist regime in Washington forward. During the Orange Guy's first term, I used to say that I was grateful to him for one thing, that he got all of the folks on the left out of our silos and together to form this resistance. Guy got back into office. The resistance was laying in wait. And that is why you are seeing hundreds of thousands of people marching in the streets all across this country, millions of people turning out with a week, 2 weeks notice. That is unprecedented for it to happen over and over and over again. And the work that we are doing, is having an effect. Remember how pissed off we were at certain number of Senate Democrats that voted for his appointees to certain cabinet positions? Remember the hell we raised? All right, and now we see that the SAVE Act is effectively blocked in the Senate because Schumer can assure that not a single Democrat in the Senate is going to vote for that atrocious bill. That is what y'all have done. That is what we have done. And that is what we are going to continue to do, because as long as this country has been in existence, what the people have had to do is to fight against the rich, the wealthy, the well-connected, the powerful, for the rights of the everyday person. That is for the rights of women, that is for the rights of black people, that is for the rights of indigenous people, that is for the rights of people who they call migrants and immigrants, but whose ancestors were in this hemisphere for thousands of years, and those motherfuckers still thought the earth was flat. And so, I want you all to join me in this march we're gonna do against 4 atrocious billionaires. It's going to take off in just a few minutes. But before that, I'd like you to join me in this little pledge, okay? I am still an American. I still believe in the U.S. Constitution. I am not defeated. For still I rise. For truth. For justice. For equality. For diversity. For equity. For inclusion. For love. For respect. And for all our siblings, for all of humanity, I will resist the rising tide of misogyny, of anti-black hatred, of anti-brown hatred, of anti-queer hatred, of anti-trans hatred, of anti-immigrant hatred, of religious hatred, of Christian nationalism, of authoritarianism, of oligarchy, of fascism. I am
The parade that day will never fade away from my mind.
Democrat in the Senate is going to vote.